Hello and welcome to a DFS strategy video for the 2022 US Open. My name is Eric and here at SweetSpotDFS, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. In the preview video I put out yesterday, we went over all the stats that were going to be important to build your lineups around. This video is all about finding the golfers to build your lineups around. So we'll be going over the rankings that I have for this tournament. I should say the player rankings. We'll go over the marquee tee times as well as the anchor buckets to really narrow down on those correct golfers to choose from. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind you guys of all the giveaways that I like to run. First one being a subscriber giveaway. If we can reach 400 subscribers by the end of this week, so we need 18 new subscribers, I'm going to give away $30. And if you want a free entry into that, all you got to do, be subscribed, obviously, but then comment down below. Give me your two favorite golfers you're going to build your lineups around this week, and you'll get a free entry. If we don't reach 400 by the end of the week, I'll just push this giveaway to next week, shave $5 off of it, and then add all of your entries from this week to next week. And then you can gain more next week. So the more you participate, the better chance you will have at winning the giveaway amount. Whether it's $30 this week, $25 next week, $20 the week after, it really depends on how quickly we can share this channel and get new subscribers. The second giveaway I like to do is a prize picks giveaway. If you've not yet signed up for prize picks, you can basically win $20 from me by signing up using the promo code SweetSpot and putting $20 in your account. So if you make that initial deposit, I will give you that $20 back. Plus prize picks is going to match your deposit up to $100. So your 20 turns into 40, and it only costs you that initial $20 deposit as well as the sign up information. If you are interested, I have a link in the description below. Highly encourage you guys to sign up using the promo code SweetSpot. Of course, I have a cheat sheet that's available. You can find that also in the description. There's a link to this sheet. All I ask you to do is when you get here, go to that file menu, go down to make a copy. That way you get to modify it however you'd like. You can put the filters on it, because currently the link that I have for you only goes to a read-only spreadsheet. So it is best for you to make a copy, have it for yourself, and that way you could also record all the stats that you want that I've gained. Super simple, super easy. Again, link in the description below. I'm also providing an optimizer that I use to build lineups week in and week out. If you're interested in this, follow the same guidelines as the subscriber giveaway. You got to be subscribed. Leave a comment down below. It really doesn't matter which one, but if you need a topic, give me your two favorite golfers this week. And then you're going to have to email me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com, because I can't tell what your email address is just by your YouTube username. So contact me, say you're interested in the optimizer, and I will send it your way. Simple as that. So those are all the giveaways that I'm doing this week. Again, if you want to follow along with me throughout this video, go check out the cheat sheet. It has basically the dream sheet I'll be talking about. It also has the bucket system. So when we go over the anchor buckets, you'll be able to follow along with me and you'll be able to modify it the same way that I do. So highly encourage you guys to do that. Let's go ahead. Let's get into this thing. We're going to start with my SweetSpot ranks. So again, go to that dream sheet that I have on that cheat sheet. Put a filter on it. It is going to be the second symbol from the right up on the little menu bar up there. Go down to DraftKings, and this puts a filter on all of the columns that I'll be talking about. Now, I'm going to sort these by ranks, and then I'm going to talk about how I got to these rankings. Well, let's just talk about it now. I like to look at the following stats. OWGR, and then I go over the grass stats. I know this says bent. That's my fault for not updating it. This should say POA, because the first grass at this golf course is Poana. So the first three ones would be POA, and then the next three would be the bent grass. So I've included that into my model. I think if you really wanted to, you could probably just, remove grass number 2 from it and just look at POA, because that's going to be the most prevalent grass here. But I'm going to keep the bent grass here because it's a mix, and I think it matters. I also have event history, which really the TH means tournament history. And I'm looking at season-long bogey avoidance, birdie or better, and driving distance. This all comes from the PGA Tour stats. The following stats are what I record week in, week out. So this is my recent form stats. We're looking at DraftKings points on average, their recent average finishing place, as well as their average scoring, their average score per round. Now, these numbers don't really mean anything to you. The better the golfer is in that stat, the closer to 100 that they would get. But for recent form, I water it down by half. So 50 would be your highest number in each of these columns. Those would be your best golfers in the field for whatever stat that I'm looking at. The season-long stats that come right after it, I'm looking at DraftKings points, scoring average, rounds under 70%, cut made percentage, as well as DK top 10. Basically, I include all these to really find our best players, and I get it, we could probably do that by OWGR, but there are going to be some low-price guys that will just score really well in these stat categories that I would like to get a boost to, just so we can try to find that diamond in the rough somewhere. I know it's pretty difficult because most people know who those golfers are this week, but either way, we're including all of those stats that all equals into a score, and that score is then ranked over on the side over here. When you get that optimizer, I use this score. I'll just throw it up right now, right in here. So the optimizer looks at the highest score person. You can manipulate this data however you'd like. So if you have a favorite golfer that you want to use in here, all you gotta do is just make their metric higher than any of the other ones. But anyways, this is all added up. It's a live ad, so if you want to even manipulate the numbers in here, you certainly can, and that will get you a higher score or a lower score depending on whatever you put in there. But anyways, if I sort back by salary, you can see the lowest price guy on the first page is $8,500. I like to use this as kind of my threshold. Anyone that's going to be lower than $8,500 that shows up in my rankings is going to be considered a value. And of course, then we'll also compare what the rankings look like versus the salaries and determine more values that way. So the three 10K golfers that we see, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm, I think those are also the better golfers in this field. I know Scottie Scheffler is a really good golfer, but I don't mind him being sixth in my model. I do think he's probably the fourth best golfer if I'm being quite honest. I think he should be higher than Cantlay, but if we look at the points, yeah, he's actually kind of a little bit further down than I'd feel comfortable saying he should be better. But I don't know. I don't care that Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele are higher than him in my rankings. That's fine. I think they're all very close, and I would still get the nod to Scottie Scheffler, but I'm okay with this. Cameron Smith, I'm also okay. He could actually go down a little bit more if I'm being quite honest. But Sungjae M, who's going to be everybody's, easy play this week, 8th in my model. An extreme misprice in my opinion. $7,600. That is way too cheap for Sungjae. If you want to play him this week, I don't blame you, because I'll be playing quite a bit of him as well. And then as we look, remember, we're looking for 8,500 or cheaper than 8,500 to show up to be our value play. So obviously Sungjae Im is one, Sam Burns is another. He's going to be another highly owned guy for good reason. We see 8,200 Tony Finau. Yeah, it's probably a misprice as well. So Tony Finau will probably be played quite a bit, and that's okay. I don't really care too much about ownership. It's all about finding the correct 6 golfers. Sometimes that means having 2, maybe 3 of the top 10 owned golfers in any slate. That's just how it goes. You don't have to really fade ownership just because it's high. Just make the right plays. And I think it's safe to go with the Sungjae M, and I think it's safe to go with a Sam Burns. They're gonna allow you to unlock a lot of lineups, and they're really good values. They're really good plays regardless. So I don't mind that whatsoever. I think those are good values. So that's basically the rankings, looking at values, looking at who the best golfers in the field are based off of what I perceive them as. You get that all in that cheat sheet. You can see the ranks over on the left side. Use that to your advantage. Now, what I like to do with these rankings is then go into the best tee time pairings for the week. So you can also sort by the group rank over here. I just actually started implementing this like a month ago. It's pretty good. Last week we found 3 optimal lineup golfers in the first 4 groups. So I'll highlight the groups. It's by every 3. Obviously, most PGA Tour events go by pairings of 3. So I will go ahead and highlight the all the way down to my 9th best ranked group. And that'd be your Kevin Na, Sergio Garcia, and Tyrrell Hatton group. But the rule is, why we look at these marquee tee times, on average, and actually even better than on average, most of the time, like maybe 80% of the time, we see about 2 golfers from our marquee tee times being in the optimal lineup. And like I said at the beginning of this video, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup. So my rule is this: find somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers from the groups that I've just highlighted. And again, you can do this on that cheat sheet. You can go look, you can sort by that group rank to find all the tee time pairings. Find 2 to 4 to build your lineups around. This is usually where I start. And I won't lie, this last month has been extremely lucrative for me. I won 2 Nagel Bagels, basically back to back. Had a really good showing in the Nagel Bagel last week. And if you don't know what that is, it's a 100-man field. First place gets $450. It's a winner take all, basically. And I was able to win that twice. But not only that, but I was also to win a couple other contests to go with it. Like, I profited $1,200 over the last 4 weeks using this strategy. Pick 2 to 4 golfers from here. Now, you also don't want to pick golfers from the same group. So although you might like Xander Schauffele and Hideki Matsuyama, don't play them together. Now, I shouldn't say it in a definitive tone like that. You certainly can. But if we look back at the last 60 weeks, and that's how far back I've gone, you're only going to find 3 or 4 instances where the optimal lineup had golfers from the same group. So that gives you a chance that will happen again, but it's really low. I'd rather play the odds and not play golfers together. But if you do see a route, where 2 of these golfers will, then so be it. You do you, build your lineups that way. But a rule for me with the SweetSpot process: do not put 2 golfers in the same group on your lineup or in your lineup. So this week, I won't lie, I really like Rory and I really like Xander. I really wanted to pair Rory and Xander together, but it's awesome to wait for the tee time pairings before really deciding what your duos are. So I think in 100% of my lineups, I'm either going to have Rory or I'm going to have Xander in them. And I'm not going to look back. I think those are really good choices to go with. So that's probably where I'm starting, Rory or Xander. But then going down here, like JT, Hovland, Finau, like if I go Xander, there's a good chance I'm going to go Justin Thomas as my next pick. What we learned in the preview is there's a good chance a 10K golfer is going to be inside the top 10, but it's not a given. It's 0 to 2. You want to pick 0 to 2 10K golfers. And I shouldn't even say that. It's not pick. It's just what I have projected to be inside the top 10. I think it's okay to go with one 10K golfer, but even if you didn't want to, having like a Xander Hovland start, or maybe even a Xander Tony Finau start, I think that's pretty viable as well. We went over the past optimal lineups in the preview video, and we found out a lot of them started with 2 9s and kind of faded a 10K golfer. So I think it's viable, and really you could go like a Xander Patrick Cantlay. They were Zurich Classic partners in that team event. They won that. I actually don't mind pairing those guys up this week either. But that really puts an interesting take on this. I really like Patrick Cantlay this week as well. So if I do go Rory, I think I'm pairing him up with Patrick Cantlay no matter what. It's either him or Jordan Spieth. So my 10K would be Rory, and I'd pair him with Cantlay, or I would pair him with Spieth. I think those are fantastic routes to take in building your lineups this week. And if not, if I'm going Xander, I don't mind pairing him up with Cantlay or Spieth, or maybe all 3 of them together. Have no issue with that either, because you can still build lineups fairly easily that way. It's probably going to have to incorporate 2 6K golfers or like 3 low 7Ks. But I think that's also a pretty decent path to build lineups as well. When it comes to the other 10K golfers, though, if we're looking at this, like Scotty Scheffler, by the way, Scotty Scheffler's group with Cameron Smith and Brooks Koepka, I don't think helps him out at all. We'll see what kind of game Brooks brings into this, but he has played like twice since, what was it, March? I think March is when the match play happened. I don't particularly care for that. Now Brooks says that he's practiced quite a bit and he's on top of his game, but who knows? That could just be coach speak or whatever you want to call it. I just don't feel that confident playing Brooks Koepka, and I really don't feel that comfortable playing Cameron Smith when his major downfall is his driving accuracy. And with the rough being as penal as it is, it's really hard for me to consider Cameron Smith despite his really good short game. So I'm probably going to be out on Cameron Smith, especially for 10,200. If he was in the 9K range, I think I would consider it, but at 10,000, that's really hard to. And Scottie Scheffler being at 11.3, I think this is a tournament where even if he finishes top 3, if he doesn't get first place, it might not be worth playing Scottie Scheffler, even if there are no other 10K golfers above him. Because at 11.3, like, just take into account some of the golfers that we just talked about, the sweet spot ranks. Patrick Cantlay, Cantlay was up there. Sung J M, Sam Burns, those 3 golfers, like with their price tag, really easy to get to, especially when we talk about Xander, like putting a Xander, Cantlay, M, and Sam Burns together. I like their 4 chances of finishing inside the top 3 better than just Scotty's alone. So if that's the case, you could put those four golfers together and there's no room for a Scottie Scheffler. So I'm usually an advocate for saying pick a 10K golfer. I still am, but I don't think it's Scheffler and I don't think it's Cam Smith. Although I do like Scheffler this week, I'm probably out on him, if I'm being honest. So I'll play him in one of my winner take alls, and hopefully that lineup hits and I do take down the winner take all. But I'm okay with fading Scottie Scheffler this week, despite I'll be honest with you guys, he is top 4 in this field for me. But I just like Rory McIlroy that much better, and I also like Xander that much better this week. You could put Xander and Scottie Scheffler together. There's no issue with that. Especially you go Xander, Scottie, skip the 8K range, or maybe not. You can go Scottie, Xander, Sam Burns, and Sung J M, and still have a really good lineup to build. But I guarantee you most of the community will do that, or will go with one of those other 10K golfers, which is fine. You probably still have to figure out what your 6K golfer is and your other 7K, or maybe your other 2 7K golfers are. But anyways, if I look at the rest of these guys, I don't care for Dustin Johnson at $9,400. Matt Fitzpatrick is a good choice if you don't want to go Sam Burns. I know a lot of people are going to be on Fitzpatrick. I also really like Joaquin Niemann as well as Will Zalatoris. Like the 9K range, if you wanted to start, like Xander, Cantlay, maybe Jordan, and if not, you could substitute any one of those guys with Zalatoris. You have the options, or the path of getting like 2 9Ks or 3 9Ks and 8K, or 2 9Ks, 2 8Ks is actually pretty decent. Like you can do that and then just have a random 6K golfer finish off your lineup, and you'd probably be pretty set. You have a really good chance to taking down a GPP. So again, select 2 to 4 golfers from the Marquee Tee Times, the ones we just went through. Could even be one of these 7K golfers down here: Keegan Bradley, Mark Leishman, Aaron Wise. That last group that I have, the one with Kevin Na, Sergio Tyrrell, that's just an honorable mention group. Really, it's just to include it just in case. I mean, it's a good record keeping group to have here. It's my 9th best group. We'll see if either one of them finishes in the optimal lineup or even in the GPP winning lineup. It's definitely doable. But again, select anywhere from 2 to 4 golfers from here. I think you're going to be pretty decent. So that being said, we can go ahead and sort this back out by salaries, because we're going to talk about the anchor buckets that I have for this week. So what I ended up doing, which you guys can do also if you're following along on the cheat sheet, I'm just going to hide. I don't think you really have these. Let me double check. Yeah, so you have all the way to cut made frequencies. You could actually just keep all this data. You don't have to do what I'm going to do here, but I'm going to hide some of this just because it's a little bit noisy and I'm not going to be able to show you on the screen everything that I think is important this week. So I'm going to throw a filter on here. This is where you can follow me. And right away, I'm going to go this max projection column and go look at the filter there. Put in a conditional that says greater than or equal to 2. So the reason being is anything that has over 2, technically, I project that we're going to at least see one golfer from that bucket to be inside the top 10. Now, to like narrow this down a little bit more and make it easier on our lives, I'm going to go to this column here where it says bucket totals, and for this year, I want to get rid of all the high volume buckets. So I'm going to go less than or equal to 30. So if it's 30 or less, that's going to be part of our anchor bucket. And there are several anchor buckets to look at. So we have last year ones, golfers who topped 20 last year at the US Open. We also have last year 5s, and those are golfers who missed the cut last year as well. So those are 2 last year anchor buckets. We actually skip the last week bucket and we go into the course history 2 buckets, which is that 20 to 40 range. That's their average finishing position at a US Open, dating back to 2013. So out of this bucket, I'm projecting somewhere between 1 to 3. Then we have 2 recent form buckets. Those are your top recent form buckets, 1 to 20 and 20 to 40. So these will be good buckets to look at. Salary bucket, I don't really care to look at, just to show you guys that, you know, having a 9K golfer is probably going to be very beneficial this week. And then the stroke gain buckets. Now, these are your best golfers in the field. They have stroke gain 1 is all stats. All stroke gain stats are positive. Off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting for the last year. This dates back to last US Open. From that moment till now, all stats are positive. We have 21 golfers in that bucket. We're projecting somewhere between 2 to 4 or 2 to 5. My apologies, 2 to 5 of those golfers being inside the top 10. And then stroke gain 2 is basically positive off the tee, positive putting, and whatever stat in between. You could have negative approach, you could have negative around the green, you could have both of those stats being negative. This is primarily just positive off the tee, positive putting. But if I'm being honest, you probably want to find positive approach to go with it, because again, I think the cream rises to the top and you want to have the better golfers on your team. One piece to add to all of this that I ran into with an issue at the RBC Canadian Open when I was trying to build lineups is if I'm following these rules, these conditions pretty strictly, it becomes increasingly more difficult to follow them when the average salary in that bucket is over $8,300. So I've highlighted in light red all of the buckets that are over $8,300 on average. And I've also shown you how many 9K golfers there are in that bucket versus how many there are this year. So you can see 9 to 21. And I put a percentage over here so you guys can have a better sense of how many golfers in that 9K range represent this bucket. Here's another rule. If this is over 8,300 and this is over 50%, we're dropping down the projections by 1. The reason being is if there were several 10K golfers like we saw at the RBC Canadian Open, there's really no chance, because I like to follow these projections pretty closely, there'd be no chance to have 2 10K golfers in your lineup and take down a GPP, let alone the optimal lineup. So the new rule is, again, if this is over 8,300 and this is over 50%, we're going to drop the minimum projection by 1. We're going to drop the maximum projection by 1 as well. I'm not going to reflect that in my projections because there's a fairly complex formula that's in here, and I'm not going to update it just for this. This is just an eyeball test. This is for you and I to know. So if we do see that, like the 9K range, obviously we're going to have all golfers in here that are 9K and above. I'm okay with it being 1 to 3. We can pick 1, but let's say if it was 2 to 4, I would drop it down by 1 for sure. So maybe that's the rule. If it's at 2 or greater for the minimum projection, we drop that down by 1. This is very much, go with the flow type of I don't know what you want to call it, scientific breakdown, whatever. This is by no means a definitive rule. It's not something that I absolutely know will always be correct, but I think it's just a very good guideline to follow. So that being said, we're going to look at all the golfers in these buckets and then try to determine what our favorite play is by the end of this. So the very first one to look at is last year 1. We'll follow that up with last year 5. And your last year 1 is just a good bucket. We had what, 21 golfers in it. We have 5 10K golfers, 4 9K golfers, 2 8K golfers. So just by looking at this, we want 2 to 5. There's a very good possibility that 2 of the 10K golfers finish inside the top 10, and then that whole bucket gets satisfied, or whatever you want to call it. The projections for that would be correct, but you could probably only play just one of them, so be wary of that. Now for me, I like Rory, like I was already saying. I don't mind Rahm or Justin Thomas. I'm probably gonna stay away from Scotty Scheffler, like I said. So it's really these 3 golfers and trying to pair them up with somebody. Obviously, we just talked about Xander, we just talked about Jordan, and we just talked about Patrick Cantlay. So if you wanted to start here and build your lineups with a 10K and then drop down to one of these 9Ks, I think that's pretty solid. And remember, the projection somewhere between 2 to 5, so we can also drop down to like 7,300. That wouldn't be terrible. Probably not going to have any conviction plays like $7,200 and below, but I really like pairing up Patrick Cantlay, Xander, Spieth with Justin Thomas, Rahm, or Rory McIlroy. So that's our first last year bucket. The last year 5th bucket or 5 bucket, these are your missed cuts. So Will Zalatoris is there. That's another good one to pair up. I don't mind having like someone like Will on my team. Probably gonna stay away from Cameron Smith. I don't know what to do with Victor Hovland right now, but I'll probably stay away from him. Cameron Young is 51st in my model. He's definitely been playing way better golf recently than what 51 should actually like represent for him, but I do think he's way overvalued at $8,800. So I'm probably out on Cameron Young. There's better 8K golfers and 9K golfers that I would want to play over Cameron Young. Sam Burns is one of them, 8,300. So is Tony Finau. So those are all golfers in that bucket. And remember, we want somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket. Well, I shouldn't even say it that way. Again, those are projections of being inside the top 10. But if I'm being honest, I would want at least 1 golfer from this bucket in my lineup. And it could be any of these guys. Even like KH Lee. I have no problem having KH Lee. Or even Justin Rose. Or maybe some of these 6K golfers. Like that wouldn't be terrible. But again, it's 1 to 3. So if you like more than 3 golfers from this bucket, I'm not saying it can never happen, but I'd highly discourage you guys from trying to put 3 golfers from this bucket, or more than 3 golfers from this bucket, in your lineup. So hopefully you eyeball it. Again, you can follow along on the cheat sheet. That way you can also make your own notes about the golfers you want to anchor your lineups around. But yeah, I think just picking one of these guys is the way to go. Having 2, maybe better yet. But yeah, I think I'm just leaving it right there. So those will be all your last year buckets. Remember, we're skipping the last week buckets and we're going right into the course history 2 buckets. That is the next one we want to be looking at. And that's that 20 to 40 average finishing position at a US Open. There are 19 golfers in that bucket. We are projecting 1 to 3 inside the top 10. So I would pick 1 to 3 in your lineup. And we have JT, Rahm, and Rory. These were 3 golfers we were already talking about anchoring our lineups around. I have no issue anchoring our lineups around those guys again. But we also see Patrick Cantlay there. It's another golfer that I'm definitely wanting to play. And seeing Matsuyama a second time, I'd like that too. I have no issue rostering Matsuyama. There is a bit of risk there because we don't know what his neck is like. We don't know what his back is like. And he'd just been having issues prior to his DQ at the Memorial Tournament, where he wasn't playing the greatest golf, but he also didn't look injured when he was playing. So I don't know, take that for what it's worth. I think there's no issue really playing someone like a Matsuyama. I do like seeing like a Tommy Fleetwood, but if I'm being honest, if I'm going Patrick Cantlay and any of these 10K golfers here, because the projection is 1 to 3, I'm probably just staying there. I'm probably just sticking with those 2 golfers and skipping the rest of the guys. Even some of these low price golfers like Eric Molinari, Patrick Rogers, Sepp Straka, Brian Harmon, probably just staying away from those guys. A $7,200 Adam Scott actually seems pretty viable. Like, that seems like a decent value. So it's up to you guys. Yeah, it just makes me like Patrick Cantlay and these 10K golfers. These 10K golfers even more. When we look at our next buckets, recent form 1, recent form 2, go ahead and find those guys. So with recent form 1, we want anywhere between 1 to 3, but I'd say probably find 1, maybe 2, and right away we see Rory and Rahm once again. And we also see Xander Schauffele and Jordan Spieth, as well as Joaquin Niemann, as well as Tony Finau. So maybe if we can get 3 golfers from here, you know, go one of these 10K golfers with one of these 9K golfers with one of these 8K golfers isn't terrible. But here's our dilemma. Sung J.M. is right there. And if we like Sung J.M., we probably don't do these 8K golfers. We probably go Rory, Jon Rahm, then Xander or Spieth, and then Sung J.M. Or we just skip Xander and Spieth and we go with Patrick Cantlay, and then maybe put a Finau in there. So we could have like Rory, Finau, M with Patrick Cantlay, and then fill in the rest with whomever. Like, this is why I like the buckets. It narrows down how you can build lineups. It doesn't just give you free reign to whatever, like, or whomever. You have to figure out, you know, you got to be pretty specific with your lineup builds. So that's your recent form 1 bucket. Recent form 2, I'm sure is going to have like Patrick Cantlay in there. Or maybe not. Interesting. Now I'm just curious. Where's Patrick Cantlay? 3 bucket? Yes. Him and Zalatoris, which is okay. The recent form 3 bucket isn't terrible. I believe you want at least one of those too. But there's so many golfers in that bucket that it's not an anchor bucket. Now, when it comes to like this, we see Scotty Scheffler as well as Justin Thomas. I'm going to stay away from Cam Smith, like I said. I really don't like, I'm seeing more and more Victor Hovland, so maybe it's worthwhile to play Victor. First time I'm really seeing Shane Lowry in any of these buckets. I don't know if I can get there. I don't know if I really want to or care. I don't mind a Matthew Fitzpatrick, and I don't mind a lot of these 7K golfers down here either. I mean, Sam Burns is right there. So this bucket, we are projecting 2 to 4 being inside the top 10. I'm cool with Sam Burns. I'm also cool with like a Tommy Fleetwood. Maybe a Keegan Bradley, maybe an Aaron Wise, maybe a Corey Connors. Like, there's several ways there. But if we're going 2 to 4, kind of puts a wrinkle into this. Because I really do like Sam Burns. And again, if it's 2 to 4, I don't see a scenario where like Cam Smith, Victor Hovland make up those 2, and that just cuts out everyone else. So there's some decisions to be made here. And what I'm kind of wrapped up on is, if I really like Burns that much, who do I pair him up with? Maybe we put him with Corey Connors. Maybe Justin Rose. Maybe this is a reason to play. Like, he looked really good at the RBC Canadian Open. I'm never anchoring around a 6K golfer. I kind of like Denny McCarthy this week, but like I said, I'm not anchoring around a 6K golfer. So I guess if you do start Sam Burns, it's gonna, like, if that was your anchor, that gives you several options underneath him, and it also gives you all the options above him. So I don't mind going that. Maybe that's where we go Justin Thomas instead of Rory McIlroy, and then kind of fill in the rest that way. That actually puts a big wrinkle in this. 2 to 4. I mean, the only way I can think about it is if I went Rory, and then any of those 9K golfers I was just talking about, whether that was Patrick Cantlay, Jordan Spieth, Xander Schauffele, or even Will Zalatoris. I mean, if it was JT with one of those guys and Sam Burns, like, that would cover this bucket, but it's not where I was leaning with that's not where I was leaning to begin with. Hmm. Very interesting. I'm not quite sure what to do. Not that I have to figure it out now. I build my lineups Wednesday night, so interesting to go over, but I'm gonna go ahead and skip that. We can go into the strokes gain 1 and strokes gain 2 buckets. We're gonna skip the salary buckets, like for reasons that I already told you. And when it comes to strokes gain 1, I mean, we have all of our good golfers here. Xander's there, Patrick Cantlay, Neiman, Burns. We talked about Fitzpatrick. We talked about Finau. Sung J M is here, and we're projecting anywhere between 2 to 5 being inside the top 10. So when I think about selecting golfers, it's really easy for me to consider JT and Rory, to go with like a Patrick Cantlay. And we just talked about this with Sam Burns. Like this would cover, like if we went Thomas, Cantlay, Burns, Sungjae. Now we have 4 that we just selected from this bucket, and we are projecting somewhere between 2 to 5 be inside the top 10. So we would cover our bases very simple, very easily that way. Going into our strokes gain 2 buckets here, let me show you the rest of them. Noren is at the bottom of this with Gary Woodland and Sergio. You can see the rest of the golfers on the screen. Strokes gain 2 golfers. We have Rom up there, which he can obviously do well at this event. He won it last year, defending champion. Victor's up there. Cameron Young. Again, remember, I don't care to play him. I also don't care to play Brooks. Homa seems interesting. I stay away from DeChambeau, but also really like Corey Connors. I don't mind Abram Answer, but I really like Davis Riley, as does a lot of people. But there's Justin Rose as well. So I guess if we're like really playing anchors, having like a Rose and Corey Connors, or even a Rose and a Davis Riley, doesn't seem like a terrible choice. But also just leaving this bucket open to ownership and letting the optimizer select the right golfers from here seems pretty doable as well. So I'm not going to really try to find our anchors that way. So that concludes all the anchor plays. Let's go ahead and try to build some lineups with some of the things we've just talked about. So for me, again, I like Rory. I like Patrick Cantlay. So I'm going to lock those guys in and just see what the optimizer spits out as kind of its favorite plays. So I think the big when we use this optimizer, the big problem we're going to run into is what we kind of just already talked about. So when we look at the recent form 2 buckets, when we were talking about this, we couldn't really figure out anyone who we wanted to put like with Sam Burns. You know, because like JT seems like the right thing to do. Well, the optimizer is going to, it already has that include. So my recent form 2 bucket right here, the conditionals, I have set as a minimum of 2, a maximum of 4. Because I'm going Rory Patrick or Rory Cantlay, it's going with Fitzpatrick as my $8,500 golfer. And it's either Kokrak or Nah, I think. Yeah, so then it's Kevin Na that goes with this one. So we're going to find that most of the lineup builds are going to have Na in them quite a bit. So what I want to do actually is come down to Na and just cancel him out, because I don't want... He's a low price guy that my optimizer is just going to find all the time. How much was he? 7,000 on the button. We're going to go cross him out, run the optimizer again, and this way it should provide us different results. So there we go. It put in Sungjae, it put in Rose. Interesting, it didn't put in Burns, Sam Burns. So I think it was Keegan. It was Keegan and... So there's Keegan Bradley. What other one did it add? Is Gooch here? No, it's Keegan Bradley and Justin Rose. Okay. So it's going to cross off Gooch. Let me take out Keegan Bradley. Let's see if it'll go to Burns. I just want to see what the optimizer is going to do when we really narrow down our choices. It's a hell of a lineup right there. McIlroy, Cantlay, Burns, Im, Henley, Brian Harman. I have no issue with that. I'm guessing Harman is the other guy. Yeah, Harman's right here. So now that he gets X'd out because we're building unique lineups, that's how my optimizer works. I just hit run optimize again. Now it includes Fleetwood and Rose. That's a pretty good lineup too. Don't mind that one whatsoever. Includes Wise. He was also one of those recent Form 2 golfers. So here's what I would say. I don't mind getting here, let me actually say it differently. I don't mind if we go down to that recent form bucket, the recent form 2, and changing this from 2 to 1. Because when we look at the golfers that are in this bucket, if we're not on someone like a Justin Thomas, it's going to be really hard putting two good golfers together, especially if we're anchoring around like a Rory McIlroy and a Patrick Cantlay. So basically, if we're anchoring around golfers that are not in this bucket, really hard to get to two golfers from this bucket. However, if you're like on someone like Justin Thomas or even Scotty Scheffler, and you pair him up with Sam Burns, you're already set. And I'm sure you can build lineups much easier using this optimizer than what I am. But I really, really like putting McIlroy and Patrick Cantlay together. Some of these lineups aren't terrible. It's basically going to stick around the same golfers that you typically do. Yeah, so Im shows up a bunch. Russell Henley did. Was Russell part of this group? No. Interesting that he keeps showing up, though. I don't mind that he continues to show up. But it was Rose. That one was Rose Oosthuizen, I think. Now we have Leishman in there. I think we're getting kind of down to the last options from that bucket. Homa shows up. How about this? I'm going to make sure it picks Sam Burns as well. I just don't know how we don't go with Sam Burns. Okay, we're making lineups. So Hosler was a part of that one. I wonder if he was a recent Form 2 golfer. I like seeing Im constantly being put in there. Davis Riley. I love this lineup. Burns, Im, Riley, Kevin Kisner. It's not terrible. Burns, Im, Tringali, Merritt. That's also a really good lineup. Yeah, so we're not really running out of any issues building lineups by making it this narrow driven. So I like that. I'm not going to just stick to those two. The other one that I was thinking of was like Justin Thomas. How about we just do Justin Thomas and Sam Burns? Sam Burns is not a part of the anchor or the marquee tee times, but I do have something in here that's going to look at somewhere between 2 to 5 marquee tee times and build lineups that way. I did include 5 because there are a lot of good groups up at the top, and I want to include them as much as possible. So just having Burns in my lineup, it went Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, Sung J M. We basically just saw this lineup with the Rory Patrick Cantlay lineup or anchor. So I think, you know, when it comes to the sweet spot process, when it comes to the rankings that I have involved, I like Patrick Cantlay no matter what. The optimizer is going to like Patrick Cantlay. I know he did really poorly at the PGA Championship. For whatever reason, when I was watching him play, it just seemed like he was trying to hit more fades, more cuts into greens, and I don't think he was really that comfortable doing that. I don't know if he was just off a little bit, but watching him at the Memorial looked much better, looked like a different man. So yeah, these lineups are looking pretty good. Sam Burns, Sung J M, those seem to be staples. I mean, maybe this is a week where we do a core 4. Yeah, a lot of these just look good. So, our first Thomas Xander lineup. Going with Burns, Kokrak, Noren, and I'm not going to stick here and continue to build lineups, but I think my 2 favorite locks are going to involve JT or Rory McIlroy, and probably mixing it up with Xander and Patrick Cantlay. Those are probably my favorites. I if we really wanted to shake this up and go like, because Rory's an AM golfer, if I wanted to pair him up with a PM golfer, I think maybe my favorite one, it really isn't any of them. This is the same dilemma that I saw at the RBC Canadian Open, because I wanted to find an AM with a PM, and that also went with like JT. JT was in the PM, I think, of the RBC Canadian, and I couldn't just do like a Rory and Finau group at that time, because Finau, I think, was also another morning golfer, but they ended up being in the optimal lineup. So maybe this is kind of the same thing. Maybe we go with the Rory, two morning golfers, Rory and Xander, or even like Rory and Cantlay, or Spieth. They're all morning golfers, and so is Zalatoris. So we could do all of those things together. But I think that's where I'm going to leave it. 45 minutes in. Lots of great lineups. If you want access to this optimizer, be subscribed, comment down below, email me at SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com, just saying you're interested in it, and I will send it your way. I'm just showing you some of the other giveaways. Again, $30 could be yours. Let's try to get more people subscribed to the channel. We need 18 new subscribers. We want to get to 400, and I will give away $30. If not, we'll run this giveaway next week. All your entries from this week will be added to next week's, and then you can add more by participating on the channel that way. And then it'll be worth 25 bucks then. Let's try to make it for 30 this week. Let's get 18 new subscribers to this channel. And if you're not signed up on Prize Picks, there's a link in the description that'll get you to that sign up page. It'll already put in that promo code SweetSpot for you. If it doesn't, sign up with the promo code SweetSpot, put $20 in your account, and I will give you that $20 back. Plus, Prize Picks will double, well, actually, they'll match your deposit up to $100. That 20 turns into 40, and it only costs you $20 plus sign up information, initial 20. But again, you're getting 20 back from me. So again, link in the description below. Highly encourage you guys to use it. That's all that I have for preview strategy video. Tomorrow I'll do a Prize Picks video, going over my favorite picks for round one, and maybe give you some strategies for rounds 2, 3, and 4. It's always the same. Look at winfinder.com, maybe check the stats beforehand. Obviously, again, it's more weather predicated, or whatever you want to call it. Always look at the weather before making your selections. It's the easy way to do it. But yeah, I think that's it. And then Thursday I'll be jumping on the pod with Chad Eckert and the Fantasy Golf Pod guys. I can't remember what we're going to be talking about, but I think Andy Lack will be on that podcast, and I think we're talking mental health, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's always fun. We talk for hours, talk about a lot of things golf related. So highly encourage you guys to go watch that as well. But that is all that I have for you this week. So with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.